The 14th Arc'teryx Alpine Academy is upon us. It's here in Chamonix this week from the 3rd to 6th of July. So if you're coming out for one of the courses or clinics, you're going to want to know what are the conditions like and what's the weather got in store for this week. So look no further, I have all the answers for you here. And if you're not, well, never fear, there's been plenty here for you too, so stay tuned. I'll give my full conditions roundup towards the end of this video. So, in case you've somehow been stranded on another planet for these last few weeks, we're in the midst of a record-breaking heatwave across most of Europe really, but especially here in the Alps, we've already eclipsed the infamous summer of 2003, which was one of the hottest and worst heatwaves on record, and it's only been June. We've still got another 3 or 4 weeks until the peak of summer, so yeah, things are only going to get hotter. Earlier this week, the 0 degrees C isotherm, i.e. the freezing level, around here in the Mont Blanc Massif, peaked at 5,136 metres. That's well above the summit of Mont Blanc at 4,810 metres. So that's really unprecedented for June. It's pretty exceptional. The temperatures on the summit of Mont Blanc itself were recorded at 2.5 degrees. And as for the Aiguille du Midi, temperatures hit a whopping 15 degrees. That's just insane. That's a pleasant summer's day in parts of the UK, and that's up at 3,800 metres here on the Aiguille du Midi. It's just absolutely crazy. So it's really not surprising, but the mountains have got into meltdown. It's looking much more like mid-August than late June, early July, as you would expect. And that has already spelled the premature end to a lot of big alpine mixed routes. In terms of snow cover, up here on the high glaciers, we are still doing okay. Coverage is still reasonably good on the upper Valley Blanche, for example. So if you are crossing the glacier, it's not too bad. But we haven't had a meaningful refreeze in weeks now. Certainly there hasn't been repeated freeze-thaw cycles. So as such, any snow bridges that you will encounter will be soft and delicate, will be weak, so you need to be really careful. And of course, more and more crevasses and bergschrunds are opening up every day, including right here. There's a couple of crevasses right on the path which takes you up to the Heilbronner lift station, only a matter of metres away from the bottom of the stairs. So yeah, even this close to civilization, you're still not safe. You still need to have your whips about you. If you are booked on one of the mountaineering clinics for the academy, you'd like to be heading up to here, to Heilbronner, or of course up on the Aiguille du Midi, and probably doing one of the many easy alpine classics up here, such as Marais, Entreves, Pot Lachenal, Arete Lawrence, Cosmic Arete, etc. All of those have got very good tracks to them. Of course, as I said earlier, you still need to be aware of soft snow bridges, but there are tracks heading to all the usual suspects up on the glaciers, so it's a well-trodden path. Route finding is easy, going is relatively straightforward on the snow. The routes themselves are all getting climbed every day. It'll be very, very busy, but yeah, they're of course they're getting climbed every day. With the heat, any loose rock is going to be more and more unstable. It is getting very, very chossy. These routes get done in all conditions at all times of year, but they're much better when they've got good coverage of snow on them to hold everything together. So yeah, you will need to be careful of loose rock and scree, but I'm sure you have no problems if you are booked on one of the beginner or intermediate mountaineering courses on one of these ridges. And the same goes again if you're booked on one of the glacier trek clinics, such as somewhere up here, Col de Rochefort, Col d'Entreves. Again, there's well-trodden paths everywhere. The snow conditions are, broadly still speaking, pretty good up here. If you're booked on one of the beginner alpine courses, one of the most intimidating things can be this, the Aiguille du Midi Arete. No time for a warm-up, no chance to practice your cramponing and ice axe technique, straight into the extreme high alpine environment the second you step out the door. But have no fear, during the duration of the Arc'teryx Alpine Academy, and maybe for one day before and after as well, they'll be reinstalling the handrail on the arete. There won't be any zigzags like there are in winter, so it won't be quite as tame as it is during the ski season, but there'll be a single handrail up and down the arete, just to make the lives easier for the guides taking all the complete beginner alpinists up and down here. And on top of that, there'll be extra guides on standby up at the top as well, just to lend a helping hand if anyone is particularly freaked, so yeah. If you are dreading stepping out of the Aiguille du Midi and coming down this arete, don't worry, it's not going to be quite as extreme as it was for me just now. And look, this will show you just how hot it is up here in the strong alpine sun. I'm dressed for the beach and I'm still sweating. Over here on the Guide Midi side, there's still a good boot track along Midi Plan Traverse, although the couloir halfway along is definitely starting to dry out now, but it still looks like it's definitely possible. People have been heading across there recently. There's plenty of tracks, as you might expect, heading everywhere across the Col du Midi. It's still a very easy path to get across the Pointe Nationale. There are tracks on all the various different variations of the Pointe Nationale Traverse, but of course bear in mind, if you are doing the full traverse, the descent is partly still in the firing line of the various seracs that are collapsing down on it from above, and indeed there's a bit of a Bergstrand crevasse crossing it as well, so yeah, just be aware of that if you're going all the way across. You can't see it from up here now, but there is now a crevasse or Bergstrand about halfway down along this descent off of the plateau here if you're heading across to the Col du Midi. It's easy to walk around if you just take a wide left, but yeah, just be aware of that if it is low vis, for example. In terms of crossing the Col du Midi towards the Cosmic Refuge and heading up towards Mont Blanc, etc., again, the glacier is still perfectly fine. There's not any problematic crevasses opening up yet. It is still relatively straightforward to get off of the snow onto the rock on the south face of the Guide Midi, for example. The same, by looks of things, on the east face of Pointe Nationale as well, so doing these high alpine granite rock routes are still very much possible. It's definitely looking over now for everything on the Tackle Triangle. The Contamine Grisole may just about be possible, but it won't be fun. But everything else is just crumbling down, far too dry. Lots of evidence of rockfall coming down all the various snow aprons, and all the ice pitches are now very black, so yeah, it's just a mess. Definitely steer away from the Tackle Triangle from now on for this summer. There's been the first meaningful rockfalls on the approaches up to the Salmonge for the Dent de Gionne and the Rochefort-Arête. So if you are heading up that way, you really need to be careful now. You need to make sure there's been a proper refreeze overnight, because otherwise it is really, really unstable. There is still snow coverage in the couloir and on most of the slopes, but again, if it's not frozen, it's not doing much to hold everything in place. And underneath that, it's just really loose scree, so yeah. Probably best to avoid the Dent de Gionne unless you know there's been a proper refreeze overnight right now. And on the Rochefort-Arête, there are now a few sections of bare ice, which doesn't stop you doing it. It's not problematic, but you do need to be confident cramponing on steep, firm ice. It's no longer an easy snow plod. And then onwards towards the Jurassic Traverse, most, if not all, of the technical rock sections will be completely free of snow now. It's going to be dry, which is good news. But as of yet, there's been no news on what the descent is like. And again, bear in mind that it is south-facing. It needs a good refreeze and it needs to be in good conditions. So it's not worth attempting the Jurassic Traverse unless you know that it's been, again, a good solid overnight refreeze. The north face, the Grand Jurasse, is now almost completely dry. So the Cassin route on the Walker Spur has been seeing a fair amount of action over the last few days. Being dry, not have to contend with too much in the way of ice and verglass on the route, but that just means there's going to be more of a rockfall risk higher up. Again, as of yet, still don't know what the conditions are like on the descent route, but if people have been going up, they must be coming down somehow. They might be descending down the Jurassic Traverse. Certainly I know at least one team who've climbed up the Hirondelle Ridge, done the full traverse of the Jurasses in the opposite direction. So maybe people who are going up the Cassin route are going down the Jurassic Traverse at the moment. Who knows? It's probably over now on the Kuffner-Arête and the Arête du Diable. It's just too dry and the Bergstrands are getting too difficult. It might still be possible, but yeah, they're getting very, very difficult now. And then the approach couloir for the Arête du Diable is just a loose, tossy mess now. Of course, the route itself, if you do manage to get up there, is better when it's dry, of course, so some people might still be trying it, but it's definitely not advised. There's too much of a rockfall risk in the approach couloir now. As for the Kuffner-Arête, again, if you do manage to get over the Bergstrand, on the route itself, it's very dry, very loose. Particularly the crucial snow traverse section after the demi-lune, it's now virtually all gone. There's no snow left on it. This photo is from over a week ago. It's going to have lost more snow since then, and that is south-facing, so that once the snow and ice goes, there's just nothing holding it together. It's just loose choss, so yeah. I think it's over now for the Kuffner-Arête for the season. Down in the Embers de Degree sector, for the granite rock routes over there, there's been a big landslide and rockfall on the approach up to the Grepon and Tour Rouge area, and this is still active. There's still stuff coming down now, so it's probably best to avoid that area at the moment, unfortunately. And debris from that rockfall did come all the way down to the approach path to the hut. It stopped making it that far now. It's largely just reaching the glacier, but even so, yeah, it's definitely quite loose and dangerous in that area. But it is still possible to climb many of the other sectors above the Embers hut, so there's still plenty to be done down there, as long as you don't mind the heat. On the Dreux, it's probably over now for things such as the Dreux Traverse. The Charpeur Glacier is getting very messy, very crevassed, very difficult to pass. And then there's the ever-present risk of rockfall on the approach couloir as well, so yeah, conditions there are very much suboptimal. I doubt many people will be heading up that way now. People who climbed other routes on the Dreux and getting back down, apparently the 9th relay, the 9th anchor on the new bolted descent line, is currently missing. so that's worth bearing in mind as well. You might need to take extra gear just in case you need to back something up or use an old anchor. Apparently that's if you're taking the right hand branch. If you take the left hand branch, it should in theory be okay. Over in the Arc'teryx Basin, it's probably over now too for the season for the Guide d'Argentière. The MELTDOWN glacier is looking very dry, very chaotic. And of course, even if you've gone up one of the other routes, that is the main descent route, so yeah. It's probably best avoided now, unfortunately, for the rest of the season. Some rope parties have been turned around on the approach trying to head up the MELTDOWN glacier, so yeah, conditions there are not great. But over on the Tour Basin, conditions are still holding up a little bit better, especially most of the routes on the Guide Tour. They are still all possible. Yes, it's getting dry on the couloir for the table arête, but that's pretty standard really. It's often dry in the midsection. You can still climb the couloir and still climb the table arête when the midsection of the couloir is dry. In terms of getting down, the descent route is still fine. The bergschrund is still passable, and the cols, yes, they're chossy, but they're still possible. If it wasn't before, it is definitely over now for the Migo Spur on the Chardonnay, but the Forbes Arête is still apparently in good condition. The ice patch on the boss is of course getting bigger and bigger, so they recommend carrying 2 axes for that, but assuming you get up that, conditions on the arête itself are still okay. There's still plenty of snow cover. Again, of course, you want an overnight refreeze, but there's not too much in the way of loose rock and choss on the arête yet. The descent route is still also possible now as well, of course, too. And as for Mont Blanc, the conditions of the Grand Couloir and the Goutte route are now really, really bad. They were pretty bad before, they've just been getting worse and worse every day. It's a complete lottery now. You're taking your life into your own hands if you do try and cross it, so definitely it's best avoiding the Goutte route for the rest of the season now, pretty much, unfortunately. As I said earlier, it basically looks now how you expect it to look in the middle of August, so really not good. The conditions over on the Trois Monts route are getting more and more difficult every day now. Up Mont Blanc de Tacle, it is still possible, but yeah, the crevasses are getting bigger and bigger, it's getting more and more difficult. But as for Mont Mordy, it may well now be impassable. Certainly teams have been turned around on the approach up to Mont Mordy. The big crevasse where the fixed rope is getting bigger and bigger, and the fixed rope may well no longer be there anymore. There's also been some wet slides on the face which has just completely covered all the old tracks and made going really difficult as well. So some parties recently have been turned around on Mont Mordy. But the Grand Moulet is still seeing a few ascents, not many but a few. The junction still does just about pass. Of course it is very, very dry, very, very open, but yeah, people have been making it across. Everyone is from there going up the North Ridge of the Dom de Goutte, of course, and that has got icy patches which are getting bigger and bigger every day as well. But if you're confident cramponing on steep ice, might be worth taking 2 axes, but it is still possible. And then over on the Italian side of Mont Blanc, the routes are generally faring a little bit better. Things like the Inamata Ridge, Tournette Spur, etc. And the Pope route, they're all still seeing action. They're generally speaking in better condition than the routes on this side for now. But probably the best way to do Mont Blanc at the moment is actually via the Béarnassi Ridge. Do some, if not all, of the Royal Traverse, because the Dom de Miage and the Béarnassi Ridge are still in great condition, as is everything on Mont Blanc from the Dom de Goutte upwards. So yeah, consider going that way maybe. As for the Aiguille Rouge, it's pretty much snow-free in the Brevant sector. There's the odd snow patch still, but nothing that's going to be in any way problematic. There's still a little bit more snow over in the Flagère and Index sector, but again, nothing that's going to cause any problems. You can still get around everywhere in soft boots or approach shoes, so you don't need to carry any crampons or heavy boots up on any of the climbs. And of course, for those of you who are here to hike, it's also completely snow-free on both the Grand Balcons now, and most of the lakes, Lac Bleu, Lac Blanc, etc. are also completely snow-free. So if you are coming here to hike, then yeah, it's pretty easy going now too, though of course very, very hot. You can see how quickly the ice is moving up here on the Midi Arête. That there, the very obvious triangular line, that's this year's zigzag from the handrails during the winter, which is very much still exposed. And just to the right of it, down and right, you can see last year's zigzag, or maybe the zigzag of the year before. But yeah, it's a good 20-30 metres diagonally down and right from this year's zigzag. Now, the zigzags then weren't bigger, they weren't longer, it's just moved. It's moved across and down the face of the north face of the Guide du Midi. So there you are, there is glacial movement in action. The heat wave is due to peak across most of France this week on Wednesday or Thursday, but here in the Alps it's probably already peaked a day or so ago. We had a big thundery breakdown yesterday, and from now on in there's cloud building up every day, and we're expecting thunderstorms virtually every day for the next few days. So while freezing levels are still very, very high, we are still in a very hot atmosphere. The fact that the clouds are building up, it limits just how high the temperature can get during the day, and of course if it does rain, that then cools everything down even more. So thankfully, in the valley at least, it is a little bit cooler now than it was a couple of days ago. But yeah, that doesn't mean that conditions are going to be stabilising up in the high mountains, because the cloud cover means there's even less chance of overnight refreeze, of course. So we are still very much in heatwave conditions. But it is now looking like from Friday onwards, and certainly through the weekend and from Sunday onwards into next week, whether the temperature is coming back down slightly towards what it should normally be in July. It will still be very hot. We're in July now, of course. But yeah, freezing levels are coming back down a little bit. Certainly below the summit of Mont Blanc. Probably still above 4,000 metres to begin with, but eventually into next week it'll probably coming back down towards the top of the Guy du Midi, below 4,000 metres. So normality will hopefully be restored into next week and perhaps beyond, as we get more of a northerly and a westerly airflow, more of an Atlantic influence. But if you're out here for the Alpine Academy this week, I would expect most courses will still be able to run in some of their capacity. Any rain we do get will likely to be late into the afternoon or indeed into the evening. So obviously your guides will plan and prepare accordingly. But yeah, I expect most courses to be able to go ahead, or at the very least they'll get you out there for most of the day. They might have to curtail some of the activities slightly, but yeah, certainly don't expect it to be a washout like it has been in some years. But as for all the events going on down in Parc Coutay, they could well be rained off, especially if there are some intense thunderstorms in the afternoon and the evening. But the contingency plan there is they'll move all the film showings and the talks and lectures into the cinema. So yeah, there's always a plan B. Things always go ahead in some capacity. Nothing gets completely cancelled for the Arc'teryx Academy. So that's it. This is what conditions are like now in the high Alps. Conditions are of course changing very, very rapidly now. So just because you've seen somebody's done a certain route yesterday doesn't mean it's going to be in condition tomorrow. My next conditions report will be out whenever there's basically anything new and meaningful to report. I don't know when that'll be yet, so your best way to stay informed is to hit that notification button. That way you'll stay on top of any new releases.